I've been trying to get close to this stork for the last hour, and this is as close as I'm going to be able to get. There's actually a number of them here, 4 or 5. This one finally separated from the group. And it kind of goes along with my subject matter today, which is why I've tried so hard to get a good picture of it. A lot of people out here today taking pictures of wildlife. I don't know if you've ever seen a stork. Why was I so concerned about getting a picture of it? There's another one out there. It's almost going to be directly straight ahead. You see it there? Of this close one. Resolution on my camera is not very good on my phone. I have to have it set at 720 because it doesn't upload very well to LBRY and Odyssey if I have the resolution any higher than that. As a matter of fact, it won't upload. On YouTube it's not a problem, but if it's going to go up on LBRY or Odyssey, I have to keep it at 720. So what's the point of all this? Well, of course it's nature, it's beautiful. We have the mountains up here, of course. And the geese have had their little geese, and the ducks have had their little ducklings, and I was going to take some pictures of those, but I think the stork really has a lot to do with the subject matter today. So hello everyone as you come in. Today is Sunday, April 25th, 2021. And I thought I'd just address a few things while I have the chance. First of all, you know the story of the stork, right? When you have little kids and they want to know where brother came from or little sister. Maybe that story isn't used too much these days, but quite a long time ago, well, not that long ago, when little baby brother or sister comes, you say to the other kids, the stork is bringing our next little infant. Well, that's because you're talking to people you're talking to the children at the level that they can understand little stories, trying to give them the details of something, especially something like that, might be a little much for them. And you have to wait until they mature a little bit before you actually give them the facts of the matter. And I might be jumping ahead on a lot of people here. A lot of people aren't prepared for the things that I'm willing to talk about. But I figure if they don't want to hear it, if they don't want to talk about it, they can, change the channel and go to something else. So I'm not going to be talking stork stories today. We're going to be talking like grown-ups. So let's do that, okay? What's this about preterism and futurism? I've had a couple of questions from people, some in a very confrontational manner, which is why I sometimes wonder if I should do this at all. But about the antichrist situation, who or what that might be, Jesus, Paul, all that stuff we've been talking about. And the fact of the matter is, we're in a school here. Let me give you a parable. Okay? You're in 10th grade, and you're taking classes in high school in 10th grade, and you graduate from 10th grade. You're promoted to the next grade, and you're out of that grade. You're going to another grade. You're going to another class. Well, guess what? More than likely, that class is going to be there for the next group that comes in the next year, right? They go back and they go through the same class that you just went through. It's not exactly the same. Some of the situations are different. Some of the course material, even though it's very similar, there might be, slightly different lesson added or subtracted or concentrated upon. But basically, somebody else followed you in that class, and they're taking that class now. Well, the same thing happens with them. They get promoted to the next class, and then a new group comes in. But the class is still pretty much the same. Still basic information, the same basic obstacles, the same basic lessons. You get my point? So, the question on preterism and futurism, it's a big subject. People who talk about that. Preterism is saying, primarily it's saying, the traditional Catholic viewpoint anyway is that, preterism is, well, Nero, the Emperor Nero was the Antichrist. And then futurism is, no, the Antichrist is in the future, he hasn't shown up yet or whatever. Well, remember what I said about Middle Eastern thought, if those of you who have followed me? It's circular, it's not linear. And even Solomon is credited as saying that there's nothing new under the sun. What was will be, and what will be was at one time. One eternal round, Alpha and Omega, Aleph and Tav, beginning and the end. And where you start on a circle is also where you'll end up. That's Middle Eastern thought. So this idea that we have to keep looking forward to something in specificity, we're probably doing a disservice to ourselves here in the West. In fact, Nero was an Antichrist. And we are looking to another, here now or shortly. And so what you do is you go by the fruits and what they do. So a lot of people are confronting me on this. Well, I still stand by what I've talked about in the past, those of you who have followed me on this. And I thought I'd talk a little bit about that it's more the principles that we're being dealt and that we have to confront. And every generation, as you know, has their own thing that they have to confront. If you read Daniel, and I was going to put this up on, as a matter of fact, I did put up a post, a community post this morning on this channel. If you go to community tab above and click on it, you'll see I put it down. I cited a bunch of scriptures about Jesus being the begotten, being declared by God to be his begotten son. Well, that's definitely not, when you look at it, not the typical traditional Christian concept. And yet it's right in the scriptures. And I know there's ways to get around that. But we're going to talk about that in the near future. But I bring it up because the same thing goes with the Antichrist. If you look at Daniel, it talks about what the Antichrist is like. And he becomes a very powerful world figure. Yes, but he doesn't just sail through life. He has people that are after him. He has battles. He has confrontations. People trying to take his power from him. Look at Daniel. Look at the kind of person he is. He's a narcissistic, selfish, greedy, power-hungry individual, but he just can't quite get his fingers around it all. See my point? Go back and read Daniel, especially chapter 9 through about 12, and look at this person, how they're described. And it's not just one person. There's a whole system that's like that, and we're seeing it today too. It's not just a person, it's a system. And I think most everybody recognizes that to some extent. I'm going to shrink this back down, okay? Reduce the, if I can. It's a little difficult sometimes. Well, I might have to leave it where it is for right now. So I just wanted to bring that up today, give you a little food for thought. And like I say, we'll be talking about the difference between Jesus, James, and I'm putting those two together, even though there were some conflicts between them as far as the way they viewed things. But them compared to the Pauline Christianity that's been pushed on the world today by and large, and how it has affected our understanding of life and of what is actually going on here. So we'll be getting into that and then some other things as well. I don't know if I should do all this, but I feel kind of, I don't want to say obligated, but it just seems to be the right thing to do. Sorry, I'm wiggling the camera. There we go. I finally got it to shrink down. Look at that. You see that? That hair on there? I don't know if you can see it. Saw a muskrat earlier swimming in the water. I come out here quite a bit. I think a lot of you know. It probably looks familiar to a lot of you. Okay, so let's end up on this subject. This last little piece of information I want to point out. You all know that John the Revelator wrote Revelation while he was on the island of Patmos. But do you know why he was on the island of Patmos? He was exiled by the emperor to the island of Patmos. Now, why would that be? Have you ever really looked into that? Why didn't they just behead him or crucify him or whatever? Why did they exile him to the island of Patmos, where he was then able to write the book of Revelation, which is, again, Alpha and Omega? You're told right up front, right as he's writing it, that when Jesus appears, he says, I am the Alpha and Omega, the beginning and the end. Right there, you're being told that this is not a linear project. This is a school that people go through. It repeats itself at different levels. And this school will probably always be here. I hate to disappoint people who keep thinking that all this is going to go away and you're going to have a nice, glassy place to live on. No sun, no moon, but eternal light and all that. Well, that's all metaphorical. This school, God likes this school. He likes it a lot. And I don't see it changing that much except for you. The end of the world is coming. For you. For me. And then a new group will come up and experience this. And hopefully some will learn and some won't. Some may fail and have to go back. I'm not necessarily talking about reincarnation, although that's not out of the realm of possibility. But getting back on John. Do you understand that John was a political figure? John the Revelator was a political figure. What did they do to, and I can't see the chat, everybody, and I'm very sorry about that. I think Mrs. Cat is here. Thank you for being here, Mrs. Cat. You remember what happened to Napoleon when he was defeated? What did they do to him? They exiled him to an island in the Mediterranean, right? A lot of big political figures, when they're defeated, they aren't executed. A lot of times they're exiled, and there are political reasons for doing that. One, it helps to control the people that might otherwise rise up even worse. Others, and I hate to put it this way, but it's kind of like the old joke about lawyers and snakes. Have you ever heard that? You know, what's the similarity between lawyers and snakes? Why don't they strike each other? Because of professional courtesy, right? You've heard that joke? Well, it's the same thing with world leaders. There are exceptions. You know, they took out Saddam Hussein, who was actually just a puppet for the U.S. government. Noriega, same kind of thing. The Libyan president. But in history, historically, a lot of them were just simply exiled. There was a war going on between Rome and the Palestinian Judean Jews, starting at about 66 AD and going through 70 and even 73 when Masada finally fell. But that wasn't the end of it. There were more wars. The Bar Kokhba or Bar Kokhba rebellion, Bar Kokhba rebellion in 135. Everybody wonders, how come those early Christians that were teaching the Beatitudes were being crucified and persecuted? Well, it's because they were associated with by merely saying that they had this affinity to this Jesus Christ, that they were in sedition against Rome. But that's written out of the history. People don't see that. It's not for saying love thy neighbor as thyself, although there were some problems with that too. So who was John? Why did they exile him? I'm going to give you a possibility. After James was killed, who was the leader of the church, basically the king of the kingdom of heaven on the earth at that point, he took over from Jesus. It then would have gone to Peter, but Peter suffered the same fate during the beginning of that war. Well, then it went on down the line, but it stayed pretty much in the royal family. Most of the family, as I've presented in my book, left, the immediate family. There were a couple of exceptions, however. One of those was John. John was the heir of the kingdom in that part of the world, even though the rest of the family had left. John took over. And as an opposition king to Caesar, Caesar could have lopped his head off, crucified him like he did Jesus. But for political reasons, Caesar decided to banish him, exile him. Probably a bad idea because John was able to write Revelation at that point, which is one eternal round. If you read Revelation, a lot of it just seems to repeat itself in a slightly different way. It could fit Nero's time. It could fit, frankly, a lot of times on up through history, including our own. I'm not saying there won't be a finishing up scene. I'm not saying that. I'm saying that we need to stop thinking linearly and see what school is teaching us right here, right now, about our circumstances. And what I posted on the community post this morning is very, very important. So I'd suggest maybe that you go look at that when we're done here if you haven't done so. And I'll do a video on that at some point in time. All right. So we have to stop believing Stork stories, ladies and gentlemen. Let's see if I can find this stork out there here. Right there. I don't know if you can see it. It's kind of hard to see. It's a little too far away. Right there. It's time to grow up from the milk and get to the meat, those who can do it. It's not denying your faith to ask questions. It's showing that you have the intestinal fortitude to ask the hard questions. When you're in first grade, second grade, and you're learning the basics of arithmetic, you don't know anything about calculus. But hopefully, after you've been in school for a while and gone up the ladder, you can find out that there's more than just addition and subtraction. That something you didn't even know existed does in fact exist. You just couldn't see it. Whether by tradition, by those around you who are suppressing you from knowing the information, like our present day political leaders and the various problems that we're experiencing today, because we want a savior so bad, we think it's going to be the government, and it's not. Your savior is somebody who influences you personally, however you want to view it. But it begins by that person you see in the mirror. Heresy, heresy, heretic, Potter, you're a heretic. No, Jesus said the kingdom of heaven is what? Within you. And greater things will you do than I have done, because I go to the Father. That's all I got for you today, ladies and gentlemen. Hope you enjoyed the views a little bit, my pontificating. And again, I'm sorry I can't see the chat. It's just too bright out here. I knew that before I started. But for my mods that are there helping me to keep things straight and clean, I appreciate that. And some of you, I don't know the answers to everything. I don't claim to, but I've been at this an awful long time. And I'd appreciate it, instead of getting confrontational and aggressive and name calling and all that, when you want to address an issue, you don't have to say to me, sarcastic things. Ask a question, that's one thing, but don't be sarcastic and accusatory, because I think I'm just going to block you from now on without even a second thought. All right, everybody, have a great day. Hope the transmission was okay. Out here, I'm never sure if the signal's going to work or not, but I think it has. We're going to get to those scriptures that I wrote down in the community posts. Again, go to the community tab above, click on community, and it's the last post I put up. And there's a list of scriptures. And it tells you a little bit more about who Jesus was and what he actually did. And that God declared him his begotten Son after he had done some things, not as a matter of just course. We're going to talk about that more later. That's what we're going to get into. And that is really the promise that you have. Jesus led the way. But there's some things you do have to do, whether you want to or not. Out here, guys. Hey, there we go. Look. Right there. Big old Huron. Take care, everybody.